Hey everyone, welcome back to Reliable Prepper. Today we're going to dive into one of the most critical topics facing all of us in the coming year: how to prepare for what could be global chaos in 2025. If you've been paying attention to the news lately, you've probably noticed a clear pattern of escalating conflicts, rising political tensions, and serious economic warning signs. It feels like the world is on the brink of something big, and it's more important than ever to be ready. We're going to break it all down today, taking a hard look at the major global flashpoints, how they could impact all of us, and most importantly, what you can do to prepare and protect your family. Now, before we get started, if you're not already subscribed, make sure you hit that button and turn on notifications. We're sharing more prepping strategies to help you stay ahead of the curve. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook for daily tips, updates, and more helpful insights. All right, let's jump in. Let's start with one of the biggest conflicts shaping the global landscape right now: the war between Russia and Ukraine. What started as a territorial dispute has evolved into a grinding, large-scale war that's redefined the balance of power in Eastern Europe. As of late 2024, we're looking at over 500,000 casualties, including military and civilian losses on both sides. That's according to recent reports from the Institute for the Study of War, which also suggests that despite the steady flow of Western military aid, Ukraine is facing an uphill battle. Ukraine's major cities, particularly Kyiv, Kharkiv, and Mariupol, remain in constant danger from Russian missile strikes and drone attacks. Russia has adopted a new, more aggressive military strategy, introducing hypersonic missiles like the Kinzhal. These are much harder to intercept and are being used to target Ukraine's critical supply lines and infrastructure. Western officials are increasingly concerned that Russia's growing reliance on mercenaries like the Wagner Group, now reorganized under new leadership following Prigozhin's death, could further destabilize the conflict as winter deepens. What we're looking at heading into 2025 is an escalation in tactics and intensity. Now, let's talk about the potential scenarios. First, we've got the ever-present risk of NATO getting involved directly. Right now, NATO countries are providing supplies, weapons, and intelligence support. But if a misstep occurs, like Russia hitting a NATO member state such as Poland or Lithuania, we could see this war expand into a broader European conflict. And of course, there's always the possibility of nuclear escalation. Putin has hinted more than once that Russia may resort to tactical nuclear weapons if their position becomes desperate. Experts from the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute have warned that even a limited nuclear exchange would spread radioactive fallout across Eastern Europe, displacing millions and creating long-term humanitarian crises. The threat of energy warfare is also real. With Russia holding significant control over global energy resources, Europe faces an unstable winter in 2025 if gas and oil supplies are further disrupted. Any additional damage to pipelines like the Nord Stream, already sabotaged in 2022, would have ripple effects across the globe, driving up energy prices and sparking political unrest. Shifting to the Middle East, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict has reached a level of violence not seen in years. Since mid-2024, over 15,000 people have been killed, and thousands more have been displaced. Israel has intensified its military responses following a wave of deadly terrorist attacks on its cities, while Gaza is enduring relentless airstrikes. The conflict is spiraling out of control with no resolution in sight, and it's no longer just a localized issue. Iran is heavily involved, playing a crucial role in fueling tensions across the region. Tehran is backing Hezbollah in Lebanon, and the Houthis in Yemen, both of which have escalated their attacks. According to U.S. Central Command, Iranian military advisors have been observed near the Israel-Lebanon border, positioning themselves to support Hezbollah, which boasts an arsenal of over 150,000 rockets capable of striking deep into Israel. The presence of Iranian forces and the constant threat from Hezbollah raises the risk of a larger, multi-front conflict. Should a full-blown war between Israel and Hezbollah erupt, it could easily draw in other major regional powers like Saudi Arabia and the UAE, turning it into a regional conflict. A broader war would not only affect the Middle East but have global consequences, particularly by disrupting the flow of oil. The Strait of Hormuz, through which nearly 20% of the world's oil supply passes, could be a key flashpoint. The International Energy Agency has warned that a conflict disrupting this vital oil route could cause oil prices to skyrocket to $150 per barrel or more, potentially triggering economic crises in oil-importing nations around the world. But oil isn't the only issue. Iran's nuclear ambitions are heating up tensions even more. US and Israeli intelligence reports suggest that Iran is only months away from having enough enriched uranium to build a nuclear weapon. This puts immense pressure on Israel, which has made it clear it won't tolerate a nuclear-armed Iran. If Israel, or even the United States, conducts preemptive strikes to prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons, it would likely ignite a wider regional war. What we're looking at in 2025 is the potential for an explosive multi-front war that could involve Israel, Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, and other regional players. This scenario would severely destabilize the Middle East, potentially triggering a cascade of conflicts that would affect not only the region, but also global economic stability. Oil-dependent countries, in particular, would face severe disruptions, fueling unrest and economic hardship on a global scale. Now, Africa doesn't always dominate global headlines, but the situation there is just as volatile and dangerous as other parts of the world. The Sahel region in particular is rapidly becoming one of the most unstable areas on the planet. Jihadist groups like Boko Haram, Akuyem, and ISIS affiliates have extended their control across vast areas of Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. These terrorist organizations have gained momentum, emboldened by the political chaos created by a wave of military coups that have destabilized governments across the region. This has left a power vacuum that these groups are eager to exploit. According to the United Nations Refugee Agency, terrorist activity in the Sahel has surged by an alarming 85% over the past 2 years. Over 2 million people have been displaced by the violence, and the region is now grappling with growing famine as food shortages worsen due to conflict. The situation could escalate even further in 2025, with jihadist insurgents likely to push their operations into neighboring countries like Chad and Senegal. The World Bank estimates that if the conflict continues to spiral, the region could lose over $50 billion in economic output over the next 5 years. But the stakes in Africa are even higher because of the continent's vast natural resources, especially as the global economy shifts towards green energy. Africa holds many of the critical minerals needed for electric vehicles and renewable energy technologies. For instance, the Democratic Republic of the Congo possesses more than 70% of the world's cobalt reserves, an essential component in batteries for electric cars. However, much of the mining in the DRC is controlled by armed militia groups, creating a volatile environment where conflict over these resources could disrupt global supply chains. Any further unrest in this region could severely impact the global transition to green energy, especially for industries dependent on these critical minerals. By 2025, we could also be facing a massive refugee crisis across the African continent. The UNHCR estimates that over 50 million Africans may be displaced due to conflict, terrorism, and climate-related disasters. Europe, already under pressure from ongoing migration waves, will likely face immense challenges as these numbers rise. Countries like Italy, Greece, and Germany, which have borne the brunt of recent migration crises, could see even more political and social unrest as they struggle to manage the influx of refugees. In Asia, the South China Sea remains a critical flashpoint for potential conflict. China has steadily increased its militarization of several artificial islands in the region, deploying missile systems and constructing airstrips capable of launching long-range bombers. According to the Asia Maritime Transparency Initiative, China's goal is clear: assert dominance over one of the busiest maritime routes in the world, through which about 30% of global trade flows. This escalating situation poses a major risk for 2025. If tensions between China and the United States or its allies, such as Japan and the Philippines, were to intensify, it could lead to a significant disruption in global trade. Critical materials like semiconductors, electronics, and other raw goods pass through these waters, so any conflict here would likely cause a ripple effect, halting supply chains and creating massive economic fallout worldwide. Taiwan remains another critical area of concern. U.S. intelligence suggests that China could attempt a military invasion of Taiwan as early as 2025. Such a move would likely trigger a military response from the United States, as defending Taiwan has long been a cornerstone of U.S. policy in the Indo-Pacific region. The Pentagon's China Military Power Report estimates that China could mobilize over 1 million soldiers with the goal of blockading Taiwan and seizing control. This would almost certainly pull in regional allies like Japan and Australia, sparking a larger Pacific war with global ramifications. Now, let's not overlook North Korea, which is becoming increasingly intertwined in global conflict dynamics. Aside from its ongoing missile tests and advancing nuclear program, North Korea has also been supplying military equipment and ammunition to Russia, assisting in its war effort in Ukraine. According to reports from U.S. and South Korean intelligence, North Korea has provided artillery shells and other munitions to help Russia replenish its depleting supplies in the conflict. This involvement not only strengthens Russia's hand, but also deepens North Korea's entanglement in global instability. Meanwhile, North Korea's own military developments continue unabated. The regime has conducted multiple tests of intercontinental ballistic missiles capable of reaching the U.S. mainland, and its nuclear arsenal is expanding rapidly. The South Korean Ministry of Defense estimates that North Korea could possess over 100 nuclear warheads by 2025. Any miscalculation, whether it be a nuclear strike or a conventional attack on South Korea, could quickly spiral out of control, drawing in global superpowers and destabilizing the entire region. South America is facing a period of deepening instability, with Venezuela standing out as the most glaring example of a failed state on the continent. The country's economy has collapsed completely, with inflation rates surpassing 500%, according to the World Bank. The bolivar, Venezuela's national currency, is virtually worthless, and the country is suffering one of the largest mass exoduses in modern history. Millions of Venezuelans have fled their homes, seeking refuge from economic and political chaos in neighboring countries like Colombia, Peru, and Brazil. The strain of this migration crisis has created additional social and political challenges across the region, exacerbating instability. But Venezuela is far from the only concern. Argentina and Brazil are teetering on the edge of similar economic disasters. Argentina, in particular, has a troubled history of economic instability, having defaulted on its national debt multiple times over the past 2 decades. The International Monetary Fund is warning that inflation in Argentina could soar to 200% by mid-2025, which would wipe out savings, devastate the economy, and lead to widespread unemployment. Such conditions would likely fuel civil unrest as desperate citizens take to the streets, demanding action from their government. Brazil, under the leadership of President Bolsonaro, is grappling with its own set of challenges. The country is deeply divided along political lines, and its economy is stagnating. Protests have become a regular occurrence, especially in major cities like São Paulo and Rio de Janeiro, where frustrations over corruption, poverty, and political mismanagement have boiled over into violence. These protests have resulted in violent clashes between demonstrators and police, further destabilizing the country. With such deep political divisions and economic hardship, Brazil is at serious risk of following Venezuela's path into deeper crisis. Should an economic collapse occur across multiple nations in South America, the entire region could be thrown into turmoil. We could see a wave of political revolutions, military coups, and social unrest as citizens grow increasingly desperate for stability. In Venezuela, opposition forces are gaining momentum, and there's a real possibility that Maduro's government could fall. If that happens, the country would likely descend into factional warfare as various groups vie for power in the absence of a centralized authority, creating a dangerous power vacuum. This kind of instability in South America has far-reaching consequences. A collapse in major economies like Brazil and Argentina would disrupt global markets and trade routes, while also contributing to further mass migration, increasing political strain in countries already struggling with refugee crises. South America's trajectory in 2025 could lead to widespread destabilization, not just within its borders, but across the globe, as economic turmoil and social unrest ripple outward. Beyond the ongoing conflicts, we have another significant threat looming as we head into 2025, the global economy. Several top financial institutions, including Goldman Sachs and the World Economic Forum, are warning of a potential worldwide recession. Now, the World Economic Forum, which promotes itself as a global think tank, has come under scrutiny for its influence on governments and economic policy. with some critics accusing it of pushing agendas that benefit the elite at the expense of the broader population. From orchestrating global monetary policies to promoting controversial initiatives like the Great Reset, the World Economic Forum's role in shaping global economic systems is seen by many as far-reaching and potentially harmful to the sovereignty of nations. Meanwhile, the Bank of International Settlements, a key financial institution that connects central banks worldwide, reported that global debt reached an unprecedented $300 trillion by the end of 2024. This staggering debt level places the global financial system in an extremely precarious position. If there's a major collapse in stock markets or banking systems, the effects will be felt worldwide, triggering a financial crisis much deeper than what we've seen in the past. We're already seeing hyperinflation play out in countries like Venezuela and Argentina, where currencies have lost almost all value. But this issue could spread to other nations if the global economy falters. One of the biggest concerns is the rampant money printing that's occurring across the globe. Governments are issuing more currency to cover their massive debts, but this is only devaluing their money further. It's a short-term solution that's leading to long-term consequences. Specifically, the weakening of national currencies, which will make everyday goods increasingly unaffordable. This economic instability means it's crucial to protect your assets now. Simply storing physical cash won't be enough if currencies collapse. Instead, focus on tangible items that retain their value over time, like precious metals, gold and silver especially, or invest in barterable goods. These could include food supplies, tools, or anything that will be useful in a high inflation or post-collapse scenario. When traditional currencies lose their worth, having these kinds of assets can be the key to survival. As we've seen in the past, when financial systems collapse, it's the everyday people who bear the brunt of the crisis, not the elites or institutions like the World Economic Forum, who often continue to thrive amidst the chaos. That's why it's critical for preppers to take steps now to secure their resources and be ready for the fallout. As we face the mounting challenges of 2025, preparation is more critical than ever. Global instability is accelerating, with conflicts in Ukraine, the Middle East, Africa, and Asia threatening to spiral out of control, not to mention the looming threat of a worldwide economic collapse. The question we all need to ask is, how can we protect ourselves and our families in the face of such uncertainty? First, stockpiling essentials is absolutely crucial. With supply chains becoming increasingly fragile due to conflicts in key regions like Ukraine, disruptions are inevitable. Long-term food storage, water purification systems, and medical supplies should be at the top of your list. Global food shortages are becoming a real possibility, and prices are already climbing as these disruptions take hold. Act now to secure these resources before they become even scarcer. Next, it's time to invest in home security. As civil unrest spreads around the world, we need to be prepared for the possibility of it reaching our own communities. Fortify your home, install security cameras, reinforce entry points, and create a community defense plan with trusted neighbors. Depending on your location, tactical training and legal firearm ownership could be valuable for protecting your family from potential threats. Don't forget to prepare a comprehensive bug-out plan. If civil unrest or military conflict hits close to home, you need a way to evacuate quickly. Develop multiple evacuation routes, keep your vehicle stocked with fuel and essential supplies, and identify bug-out locations where you and your loved ones can regroup safely. Forming a network of trusted individuals will significantly improve your chances of weathering a crisis. Lastly, staying informed is key. Relying on mainstream media alone may not give you the full picture. Alternative news sources often offer critical perspectives that can help you stay ahead of emerging threats. Knowledge is power, and knowing what's coming can make the difference between life and death. As we approach 2025, it's undeniable that we're entering a period of unprecedented global turmoil. From the escalating wars to potential economic collapse, the world is becoming increasingly dangerous. But here's the good news. You don't have to be caught off guard. By taking these steps now, staying informed, stockpiling essentials, securing your home, and preparing to bug out if necessary, you can protect yourself and your family from the worst of what may come. So take action now. Like this video, subscribe to Reliable Prepper, and follow us on Facebook for more strategies, tips, and updates. Stay prepared, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.